Hello, this is Nychelle, and I am here with the first annual Blades in the Dark con called Con in the Dark, on one of our lovely panels here on the Dagger Isles. And I have some wonderful guests with us today. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, Pam, why don't you
Nicole.
go first?
Oh, okay. Yay. I'm Pam Punsalan, also known as the Dovetailer on Twitter, Card, and a lot of my other social media panels. I am a queer designer, editor, game consultant. You're going to hear sirens in the background because I live in Manila. So that's a thing that happens a lot. I know some designers like to call the city a cyberpunk city, but honestly, it's more a noir city to me. If you ask my for my humble opinion, I have worked on a whole bunch of things. It's very. I'm happy to say it's a long list, and my current project, of course, is the Dagger Isles settlement. That's me.
I'm Sean Nittner. I use he, him pronouns. I'm in Oakland, which I definitely would not call either a cyberpunk or a noir city. I'm trying to figure out the genre for the city. The part of the city that I live in, probably cop drama is the genre of unfortunately of the city that I part that I live in. Anyway, I am the director of projects for Evil Hat, and in that capacity, I'm working as project manager on this project. Also, the steward at Big Bad Con and host on Actual Play Podcast, and I don't know, I wear lots of hats. But I'm really excited to be here with Nychelle and with Pam talking about the project and what we're doing. And yeah, we talked about it a little bit a couple months ago at Big Bad Online, and there's more that's developed since then. So let's jump into it. I'm excited.
It's been a
Yes,
pretty.
absolutely. And unfortunately, due to circumstances outside my control, I wasn't able to attend that one. But there's been so much more juicy creation since that particular panel. Pam, do you want to go ahead and give us a little tidbit as to what we've been working on?
Well, the current status that we have right now is that the playbooks are done. They're just going through some really cool playtesting, and the core setting is more or less finished. So the lore has been established of like exactly what the islands are now, what their place is, and what their relationship or not relationship, depending on who you ask, is with the empire. Then there is also the different cities, or well, city is a hard term to use, but I'll use cities because it's the most convenient, right? But the cities that people from the Dagger Isles and players therefore can interact with, because the main difference about the Dagger Isles, and this is how me and the rest of the team decided to come up with, is unlike Blades in the Dark proper or vanilla Blades, where you are all stuck in one place and for different reasons you kind of can't leave, right? The Dagger Isles has several places that you can move through. While travel is dangerous, it's possible, and that immediately changes the flavor, I would think, of how gameplay might go, which is also why after we go through playbook testing, because I firmly believe, and I think that John and Nichelle, John Harper and Nichelle all think the same way as me, that the actual core of Dagger Isles or anything that you do when it comes to Blades in the Dark design are the playbooks. You have to sell those first because they are the heart of the game. They're also how you communicate the aesthetic, and this is also how you get people into the skins of the characters that they will be piloting for the majority of your sessions. So it is the most important part in many ways of any kind of Blades in the Dark design. Blades in the Dark, that's a very interesting. I can come up with a hack for that. Anyway,
Writing that
my
down on the page.
yeah, that's details. So yeah, it's you travel through cities. Each city will have their own kind of politics, and then the other interesting thing about the setting is that the islands are alive. So that's I guess, our big contribution to the canon. There's a lot of talk, or at least implication, about the cataclysm and how things have been affected by that, ghosts and spirits and gods, forgotten or otherwise. In the Dagger Isles, you are literally on the bones, guts, and blood of a killed god that may or may not be coming back to life. And what you want to do with that as players is totally up to you. You can kind of just look at it, go, "Oh shit," and move on. Or if your GM really wants to, maybe you can go into it. Who knows? Because I think, at least for me, and again, I can neither confirm nor deny that this will happen, since development is a long and interesting and long process for any game. Any
Yes,
game,
and
no matter
long.
how, and it's like it's long and interesting and long process. One of the things that I'm really hoping to do with the wonderful team that has been assembled is we want to provide starting scenarios. We understand that the Dagger Isles is going to be very different from the blades that we know. So to provide some kind of guidance and also show you that, hey, this is how we envision things to be. We will have starting scenarios to kind of get your feet wet and answer without really having to shove it down your throat. How do I play somebody from the Dagger Isles? What does it mean to be from the Dagger Isles? Or what does it even mean to be somebody who's from the outside who came to the Dagger Isles? Because we're not telling everybody, y'all got to play Daggerites, but we are telling people that this is the setting that you will be in.
Mhm.
And this
Mhm.
is how it works. And it might not be what you're used to. So I think that's a whole lot of stuff to start talking about. So
Yeah, yeah.
there you go.
And I think you really, there's two things that you hit on, Pam, that like really, I mean, everything you said 100%, but two things that really resonated with me. One is that the playbooks are really the vehicle for which the players engage with the game. And so, no pressure, Nychelle, who's doing playbook design. But that's the thing that everybody is going to see. All the lore, all the stuff written, people might encounter, but the playbooks, the context on them, the special abilities, everything that's on there, that's really how it's going to define play. And I think the other consideration in there is the starting situations, because so much of like what do we do, because we have not only new playbooks but also new crew types, and the crew types have focuses that are very Daggerite specific, right? They're not just, I mean, it's not like you couldn't be smugglers or you couldn't be bravos or anything like that, but these are crew types that are based off of the history of the Dagger Isles, the current political situation, the infighting amongst people, and all that stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I think a combination of the crew playbook, the character playbook, and those starting situations, my hope is that anybody coming to it going, oh, I know blades, but I don't know this setting, can go, oh,
Yeah.
cool, I know what to do. Like,
Yeah.
here's what's going on, and like people are pillaging my home, and I can stop it. In fact, that is the scenario that we keep basically playing through with all the playbooks. It's like, you find people pillaging your stuff. What are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, it's also the speaking of that idea that the playbooks are the center and the vehicle. I have gotten some questions and concerns that, like, and that you have to tackle literally the white elephant in the room. I'm a white person, for example. I hear that a lot. I'm a white person who will be walking into your Southeast Asian setting. How therefore, can I be authentic to it? And the point of the all of the work that we're doing is, like, for one, I will say now, and I've already announced this on my Twitter before, the majority of the team are people from Southeast Asia. So there's already a lot of authenticity and a lot of cultural heritage and a lot of, I guess, being genuine to what we know and who we are that will be there. So the very act and decision that we've made to create this with as much love and care and nuance as possible is already us giving permission to literally anybody to pick up this book and see if it suits them for play. So you don't have to worry about that, because we've done that work and we want to present these things to you for you to play with and for you to at least encounter things that mean a lot to us. Like, there will be a lot of unapologetic nuance or sorry, discourse in the book about queerness, because queerness in Southeast Asia is a topic that isn't really talked about, even though we have particular ideas of queerness and identity. So it will be there. Also, Blades in the Dark is all about the Vanilla Blades talks a lot about being a scoundrel. Dagger Isles redefines that. Are you a scoundrel because you're a criminal, or are you a scoundrel because you're fighting against an invader? Or are you a scoundrel because you're fighting against a person from a rival city that does not agree with your city's beliefs? Right? What is a
Mhm.
villain becomes a question. What does it mean to be an antagonist? And what does it mean to be called a criminal? Right? So those are things that uh, m- you may want to explore, or you can also just run around in this crazy island that has ghost eating plants and whose literal cities believe that they are the children of a god. And the definition of gods in Dagger Isles is that they are leviathans. Like that is a god beast to them. So Duskfall people might see leviathans as like, we got to kill that thing because you got to make money. It's also very scary and has a lot of teeth and tentacles. But for some people in the Dagger Isles, that's their relative. That could be their great 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 granddad, depending on who you're talking to.
Mhm.
So it's lots of shifts in perspective that I
Yeah.
hope people will find very exciting.
And I
Yeah.
really, sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
No, go ahead.
I really love the distinction, the discussion of criminality there, because within in Duskfall, if you're a criminal, even if you're like a local folk hero, you're generally considered to be a criminal through and through. Like if the blue coat, if like you have wanted level, uh, even if you have friends that'll hide you out, like everybody knows that the Bluecoats and the Spirit Wardens and the Ministry, they are the people in power, and you could be end up an Ironhook, right? Like that is just a eventuality. But I feel like in the Dagger Isles, there's going to be there's going to be these distinctions where someone is going to be a criminal in the eyes of the Empire, but not necessarily a criminal in the eyes of the people of the Dagger Isles. So you'll have this situation where we pretty much presume in Akaros that like the imperial law is the only law. Like it's just the law. But I feel like there is going to be these conflicting. And honestly, I think this is true anywhere outside of Akaros, but in particular in the Dagger Isles, who is like also still like pushing back against imperial control. That there's going to be different definitions of criminality. So yeah, I think that's real exciting to play with.
Yeah, and that has definitely been like a great honor, but also like a really massive responsibility as somebody who's from outside of that particular heritage and culture. Um, Even though I have a very unique heritage and culture, to come in and be given the honor to say, "Hey, here's all those wonderful things of our heritage and our history and our culture and our richness and this is our blood, this is our sweat, this is the air we live and breathe. Here it is. Now you go ahead and make playbooks out of it." And I'm just like, oh, okay. I'm gonna do my best.
Yeah, in the
If
playtest
there's
games, there's
anything
been
that needs to be changed, you just let me know. I'm more than happy to change. Um,
yeah.
and one wonderful thing that like we've been able to do is we'll give you guys a little peek here. One of the new cruise sheet abilities that we are working with is something called um, the Understar Passage, because of how Daggerites and people from the Dagger Isles view the islands and the shattered world itself. Of you don't just travel possibly on its surface, and that's all I'm going to say. 'Cause a lot of
Just a
and
little teasing.
Everything's in
just a little
development, so
teaser, but also because like we're still in the process of figuring out what works, what doesn't. Anything we may talk about here may totally change by the time it's finished and published. And but like it has been wonderful to work on, and I learn something every time, and it's been a great journey to be a part of, for sure.
it's also nice because I think that the playtest sessions are also kit bashing and design sessions,
Hmm.
basically, because the people who are playtesting them are also members of the team, the ones who wrote setting pieces or the ones who are contributing in terms of consultancy. So we all get to kind of go, okay, that seemed like a really good idea, but then maybe we should try this, or maybe we should do that, right? And then I haven't really been able to attend lately because of various health problems. But the what I've been hearing from my partner, for example, who's also who was in charge of the geography. So any spoopy plants and strange animals, you can blame my partner for that because they're very, very good at making flora and fauna. And what's cool about that, just going off on a tangent, is we are literally drawing from our folklore here. So we have 3 or 4 books at home that we kind of just look at, and I know that we got some actual sources from the University of the Philippines on like what kind of plant is this? How poisonous is it? Can we make it creepy? Let's do it.
Can we
So
make it
that
ghosty?
can we make it ghosty? What does it do? Okay. So that's why we have that going. But like I was saying, the when you pick up these playbooks in the future, you will be holding in your hands a group effort to create this kind of aesthetic, like speaking as the, I guess, the lead of the project. I really felt like Nichelle was the best pick because, well, I have a lot of ideas. As I was saying also to other people, I only got like one brain cell, occasionally three, and one of them, and all of them are not very good at playbook design. So they're very good at conceptualizing things, but they're not very good at playbook design. So I was like, let's get somebody who actually knows how to do playbooks. Nichelle, she knows how to do playbooks. There you go. So that was just my logic. There's no, I
Well,
won't apologize for it.
and you provided a really good structure. So the playbook started with Pam, you saying, here is here's the ink fist, here's all the playbooks that you had in mind, and like ideas behind them. So it wasn't like Nichelle was having to work from scratch or do independent, like do figure out what the themes were. So you provided a really great primers, and also for the setting creators, right? We hired on a lot of folks to work to create their own sections, and you provided these primers for them. So Pam really, for folks wondering like how did this thing all come together, there's just lots of group effort, but also lots of leadership from Pam to make it make sense, to make things fit together. We have a couple questions from I see in Twitch chat. Do we want to look at any of those? How do you feel about Twitch questions?
I'm okay with answering any.
All right. So one of them is pirates? Question mark.
Where do I start with that? Okay, first I will start from. Before I answer anything, I will say that I'm going to premise it with, since this is Dagger Isles and it's based off Southeast Asia, I will only really be able to speak from two positions. I'm the lead I'm the lead of the project, but also I'm contributing part of the Philippine voices in an amalgam of Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and anyone else that we may be able to draw in the, if as needed in the future. So when you ask me pirates, I will say as lead, yes, we will have pirates. Now, but if you're asking me like how they're going to come about, then that's where things might get a little sticky because again, the idea of criminality might be different. And on the other hand, um, the Dagger Isles has two ways of traveling. You can either bushwhack your way through ghost eating plants, or you can hopefully not swim your way through canals that have a lot of weird stuff in it that also may or may not be the blood of a dead god, right? So there's that. I will give you a small tidbit though that one of the banyans, because that's the name that we gave to our setting, a banyan, based off banyan tree. For those of you who are familiar with that kind of tree, um, they are pirates. If you want to use the term pirate, and they are also people that define their gender by weaponry. So that's one of our interesting places, and a lot of people don't like them but most of those people are white imperial people, so a lot of the Daggerites don't really give a shit about that opinion, right? So
It
there's
has been fun to
balance.
play with from what we have interacted with so far. I just want to let people know.
Oh, I did say. I will also say though that another thing that I do need to work on with the team, because like the phases so far, if you want to like break it down in development that we have are, we have a lot of our core setting, we have our playbooks. Playbooks are in playtesting. Then it'll be crews for playtesting as well, I think. And then what's next on my docket is that I will have to make the final banyan, which is the capital city. I will put like really big quotation marks here, capital city, because the empire says it's the capital city, but the Daggerites are like, it's just a city. So who the fuck knows, right? So I need to make the capital city. And then we have to talk about scenarios. So it's a very
Yeah.
long road.
All that said, when we have that, as soon as we all feel comfortable, I've talked to John, and I know this is the evil hat position that we're very big fans of putting things in front of people as it's in development. So once
Mhm.
we have enough playable content,
Mm.
we will be releasing it in some, whenever we internally feel like, okay, this is presentable. John is totally like ready to do layout for playbooks, and so we will be sharing things, much like Blades was shared very, very early on. So I don't have a time frame yet, but my hope is I will say roughly probably this year. I would like to say we will
Yeah.
definitely be sharing things with folks, and I'm just excited to see what other people do with it because we've already been having a lot of fun internally, and I think I think so. If you're watching and you're like, when do I get it? You will get it. I
I
promise.
promise. Well, you're seeing us, right? We go on these panels also to hold ourselves accountable. So
Yeah.
it's gonna happen, right? It's just there are so many moving pieces. This project is very challenging, and I will say also that I'm quite honored that Sean thought I was responsible enough to lead this thing, because I was like, yeah, I can lead this thing, and my other half was like, are you sure you can lead this thing? And I'm like, too late. We're in it now.
I mean,
We're
Pam,
leading this.
you came up, you sent the pitch, and you're like, I think I can do this, and I was like, I think Pam's got something here, and I showed it to John, and John was like, yeah, I think so too. So at this point, you're qualified. Like every what you just have to take imposter syndrome and just
Shove it in.
Goodness
just
gracious, Pam, I saw that initial document that you did for the like submission, and like you had things like all the way out, and I'm like, I would not have had that figured out by then at this point. I
yeah,
would have waited till I would have gotten a response.
Like I
Um,
said, the single brain cell.
yeah.
When it goes, brr, I got it.
It
But
was working overtime. The next
um,
question. Oh, sorry, Nychelle, you go.
no, go ahead, Sean.
You sure?
yeah,
Okay. All right. All right. Next question is: so revolutionaries, all caps. Not sure why it's all caps, but crew book when?
uh,
I don't think we have a specific. Do we have a specific revolutionaries crew book? I think that's more of a general
Mm,
theme.
we do have possibly similar
yeah,
cruise sheet called
yeah,
the Liberators.
Nice. There we go.
yeah. Because it's just to give you a bit of designer lead background. I really thought about it for a while. So the original conception, when things were still in pitch form, was that there would be a crew specific to revolutionaries. But as the design moved forward, and as we kind of formulated more of our documents, I realized that having a playbook specifically tagged revolutionaries might actually be counterproductive, because there are other constraints on the islands that you have to consider. Because when you go revolutionaries, the big question there to answer is revolutionaries against what? And the normal response might be against the empire, but is that entirely true? Because the island also has a lot of nuance. There are cities that are in cahoots with the empire. There are also
Mhm.
cities where the empire doesn't even matter to them. So how can you say that they even are revolutionaries if the empire is a non-issue? So what we're trying to formulate instead, as Nichelle just shared, is liberators. Liberators from other kinds of conflicts, may or may not be the empire, might be something entirely different. It might even be intergenerational conflict, because one design aspiration of mine, and this is speaking from the perspective of a local Filipina, is not a lot of people talk about the intergenerational effects of things like colonial violence and also of corruption, systemic corruption, perpetuated by your own people against yourself and against others. So, in the intertwined networks that happen in a lot of Southeast Asian countries, where then do you stand if, let's say, you know that that family on the other side has been fighting your family for 5 generations, and all you've heard that entire time is that they're evil, but it's been 5 generations. How do you undo that damage? So perhaps the playbook liberators will be able to go into that a little more. So
Mhm.
Yeah. The other thing is that it's going to take 10 years for us to get there. But if we explore the Shattered Isles, one of the things we're going to explore is lots of different stages of colonialism. Like
yeah, yeah,
Scoveland, for instance, is in the we just lost the war. The Dagger Isles isn't there. The Dagger Isles was conquered or taken over or added to the empire a while ago, right? Like it isn't a recent thing. It doesn't
yeah.
mean that Daggerites have embraced that or accepted that. Really, nobody has embraced that or accepted that. You'll find the same thing in Aruvia. You'll find the
Mm.
same thing in Severos. But it also isn't that like we just lost a war last year and we still have, people that are sick from like there aren't this like military veterans feel that you get in Scoveland.
Mhm.
I feel like what you're developing is a more nuanced thing of like you said, like people who've bought into it, people who've sided with the empire and whatnot, people who don't even think about them, and so yeah, I like that this is not trying to tell this one revolutionary, freedom or death kind of story, right? It's a way more nuanced than that, and it's way more lived in. It's like this is a world that we have to live in. We don't just get to say fight the empire and like we need to eat, we need to get along with our neighbors,
Yeah,
so
it's because I when I first started game design personally, I thought that the idea of writing revolutionary stuff was simple. It is not simple. And what I've noticed about a lot of our design at present is unbeknown it's all good intent is the thing. We all think we know what we're doing, and that's okay because we that's part of the exploration. We grow, we learn, we keep designing, but we have to move past revolution as a slogan, and we have to start looking at how ways of fighting are different, ways of decolonization are also different, and how
Mhm.
do you be true to form in particular when it comes to a entire continental region that is Southeast Asia, where each one of us has a different colonial history. We can't even talk to each other in full agreement. We all kind of agree to disagree because we're like, yeah, bro, I didn't see it that way, but sure, right? If you go to the Philippines, for example, we were colonized 5 times. That's my country, right? But you look at places like Thailand, and their encounters were different. You look at Singapore, and you also look at Malaysia and Indonesia, and each one of them has a very. The Vietnam also has a very different story to tell, and there are other countries as well, Myanmar, Laos. We all have different ideas, and when we go encounter people online who tell you this is how you're supposed to decolonize yourselves, uh, the moment you feel discomfort as somebody who is a colonized body is the moment you should start asking questions. And how you answer those questions is you do them through design, and you see what feels right, and you see what speaks to your fellow queer man or woman, right? So
Mhm.
I think that's why we're that's also part of the reason why it's been a lot of good labor for us, because how do we convey that in design? One of the designers that I'd like to really highlight, who's done a lot of good work there, is Shao. I
mhm.
think I've mentioned him already, but he wrote entire sections for our setting lore about colonial violence, imperialism, and encountering stuff. Like it's there in the setting primer, and his specific experiences were drawn from both being a Singaporean and also somebody who specializes in Southeast Asian studies and saw all of the maritime stuff that happened, all of the interactions. So I don't want, as a Filipino woman, this Dagger Isles book to be used by people to go like, this is how you're supposed to do it. But I do want to provide, like, I want to provide ways to look at things, I guess.
Yeah. It to essentially come to your own conclusion or solution
Yeah.
to to how that can possibly hit your table in that fiction. And it's something that needs to be done delicately, and honestly, it may look very different from one table to another, for sure. And one of the, I will share one more little tidbit here from that crew. There's a little smidgen of flavor text. It says, "We are all victims of the fever, only it wishes we squander between ourselves so it can consume us more easily." And I'm not going to say anything more than that because spoilers.
You're you're just so good at teasing these things out, Nychelle.
Well, you told me.
Exactly.
I asked.
Yeah. No. I that's 100% a compliment, and not back. You're really good at giving these little teaser bits. Yeah. And I hope. Going back to that point you made early, Pam, about how are white people going to feel playing this game, and like, are we going to, as a white guy, am I going to feel comfortable playing the game? I hope that one of the things that you're doing, that we're doing, as we're making this, is part of saying like, no, there isn't a single way to decolonize place. There isn't a single way to have a revolution. It's also a little bit, hopefully, freeing to people. Like, there's no way to get it right. Like, I've been on a DEI committee at work, UC Berkeley. I've been on a DEI committee for 2 years now. Mm-hmm. And I swear in 2 years, we're still like, so what the hell is it that we're doing? Because we're still, we have made improvements. We have, I think, made helpful changes. But we've also kept realizing, like, we got into this group thinking like, we were going to hire these consultants and they were going to tell us, this is how you do DEI work, right? And it's like, there's a way to do it, and this is how you be a good ally, and this is how you ally as an action, not as a noun. We had all these very like high-minded ideas, and we've just like come to terms more and more with like, you're all just trying little things and big things and doing things and figuring out how they work for you, and there isn't a single way to present it. Just like there shouldn't be a single way to play Blades, right? Like, there shouldn't be a single way. Like, sometimes Blades is kind of goofy, sometimes Blades is really grim, sometimes Grades like grimdark, sometimes it's really personal and tragic. Like, Dagger Isles should be just as nuanced, right? And different groups should make it their own game. And so I think that's great, honestly. I think it's great that we're not giving like one version of what it means to fight oppressive forces.
It's also hard because, like, how could I possibly do that? How could we possibly do that, right? Because then we're going to go back to, this is the Asian book of this. And, like, that's the last thing that I want here. The people that are going to go, it's the Asian book, right? Or this is going to be the African book. Like, that's horrible, right? No, it's a book inspired by this, that, right? It's not the Southeast Asian setting. I only use that term because Twitter characters are limited. Okay, that's it, right? But if you told me, can you explain? Then that's why we have panels. So it takes more than an hour for me to just go, bleh, right? Because it's a lot. It's every term and label is a lot. And again, the hope is we distill this lot and go, here's a thing you can play. And if there are questions later, you can all ask them later. And you can all figure it out like we did. So.
Well, that's going to be one thing. I hope you're ready for this, Pam and Nychelle, because John, I remember when we first started the Blades discussion, it was on Google+, which sadly gone. Or not sadly, depending on your feelings about Google+. But there would be dozens, tens, and eventually hundreds of questions on there. What's this? Who's this person? What's going on? So many questions about lore. I mean, there was also like, how does harm work? There were rules questions, but there were so many questions about like, is this right or is that right or whatnot? And I think every time anyone would answer, myself, John, would be like, well, in my game we did this. Like, there isn't a definitive, there isn't like sage advice like the back of Dragon magazine where the sage would tell you from on high, this is the one true fact, right? Like, this setting, this world is always going to be a world that is meant to be made your own. It's not Forgotten Realms where everything's already spelled out and everything's already known, right? Like, this is always going to be a setting that you create.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because there's kind of like a running joke because sometimes you'll have a new person come into the Discord and they're like, okay, so like I have this question about like this one action or this one thing. How does it work? Like, what's the right answer here? And then you'll eventually have somebody say, it really honestly depends on your table, and here's why. And I'm like, but
Remember,
that's not an actual answer. And they're like, but you make it what you want. It's yeah,
yeah.
it can it can
Read the
get very
conversation part of the book, where very the
yeah.
very beginning of the basics it says this game is a conversation.
And that's
Yeah.
honestly not everybody's play style as well,
No.
right? But like on, but
Mm-hmm.
again, on, I'm making a Blades in the Dark. We are making a Blades in the Dark setting. If not making it what you want was not your thing, then I'm sorry, but I'm not quite sure why you were here, right?
Yeah.
Because games serve different purposes, right? And that's meta that I can probably talk about in another panel. But games serve different purposes. They serve
Yeah.
different people. This is our
Mm-hmm.
audience, and I'm hoping that again, what we make will be something that you can go, that's super cool. That's really inspiring. I'm gonna do my own thing with that. Then, if I see a lot of people doing that, I'll feel like I succeeded.
Yeah, and people invariably will because Blades has been out since 26
Mhm.
17 is when it was published. But like
Yeah.
even there, it was out and available. People were playing it since long before then in playtest versions. So people have been playing. By the time it comes out, people may have been playing Blades for 10 years or close to, right?
Oh wow.
So they're
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
have ideas about the Dagger Isles. They're gonna have characters from the Dagger Isles, and they're gonna be like, "Well, in my version, I did this," and I'm
Yeah.
just saying this like right now. Cool,
Mm-hmm.
like go for
Yeah.
it.
Go
If
for
this
it.
book contradicts you, play with that. Use it or you don't use it. Chuck it out. Have reasons why some people believe one thing and some people don't believe another. Like that. That is a okay. If Pam's ideas and the ideas of the creators are totally not what you had, like mix it up. It's totally fine
Yeah.
to incorporate those.
Yeah.
One of the kind of going off of that and like the differences between your fiction and another table's fiction, one of the questions in the Twitch here is in Duskfall, they have lightning barriers to protect them from ghosts. How is that being addressed in the Dagger Isles?
Ghost eating plants. No, seriously, that's how it's being addressed. Okay,
It
I'll
really
explain.
honestly is, and it's the
Every
best answer ever. It's
Yeah.
like so
ghost eating
simplistic.
plants. Okay, so again,
Plants.
let's go to a bit of Dagger Isles geography, and also Dagger Isles mythos, which will be in part of the introduction, hopefully soonish. So way back, there was a Sky Mother and the Sky Father, and they were massive god beasts. And yes, they are leviathans, or maybe they're even, if leviathans had like a step above, kind of like a category 5 kaiju, they'd be like category 6, like that. There you go. So Sky Mother, Sky Father, they birth a fuck ton of children, and all those kids, like
Technical
any big
term.
family, right? They all have different things going about them. Skyfather, for whatever reason, different cities will tell you that all the reasons are different. Whatever it was, he fights Sky Mother. So all the kids who sided with Skyfather and all the kids who sided with Sky Mother have this massive epic battle. Skyfather loses, drops into the ocean, creates Dagger Isles with his corpse. So that is where we're starting now. So it's a very long and short way of saying it's his body on which those ghost eating plants are growing. They eat spirits and energy, and that's what protects people from a lot of the ghosts. Another interesting thing is that Daggerites in general have an intriguing relationship with ghosts. They parley with them, and some of them are also ancestral spirits. So it's less about avoiding them and more about how can we serve you? Or how can we make sure that you don't eat us? What must we do? What kind of tribute would you like today, oh
I mean,
strange spirit?
I feel like if anybody has had a demanding grandparent, right? And I mean, demanding grandparents are present in lots of cultures, right? That this is
Yes.
not a unique, right? Like if
No.
anybody's had a demanding grandparent, like I think you can understand the ways in which someone might interact with a particular ancestral ghost, right?
Yeah.
Um, like I want to watch my soaps could also be like, I want to eat some faces, right?
Yeah.
Like these are
Yeah.
not different sorts of demands in the context of like, oh, okay, like, what are we going to do? Great
Yeah.
grandpa's got,
Like it's
cranky.
we embody it, I guess would be. Thank you, Sean, for telling me about the demanded grandparent. Yeah, it's like you embody that. because that's literally what's happening to a lot of them. So when you talk to a
Mm-hmm.
Daggerite about their demanding grandparent, what they actually mean is like a seven-handed tentacle tree that's that they've all been dealing with this entire time. And the tree is like, sometimes I like you, other days I want sugar, any kind of sugar, right? So there, I hope that answers your question. Like, where are the lightning barriers? Sometimes they're there, most times they're not, because
Yeah.
ghost eating plants.
Yeah. There's another question. Did he say Ink Fist? And that is followed by, are there any lore bits or playbook abilities you can tell us about how tattoos play in the Daggerite culture? I just
Sure.
figured I would throw those. I
Nichelle's like,
figured I'd
yay,
throw those two questions together. Yeah.
yay. Nichelle,
I
you should
get to
read
talk
one. Yeah,
about what
yeah.
I wrote.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. So Inkfist, yes. Um, this is, I would say, one of, I wouldn't say the best because honestly, I think every single one of them is the absolute best. But Inkfist is the Daggerite. It's a playbook that plays with how you approach certain scenarios very, very differently from vanilla or core blades. So, how you approach a scenario is going to be very, very different. Um, and let me pull up here a little bit about them here, just so I make sure. Let me pull up one. Which one do you guys think is um, the Fist of the Gods? Might be a really good one.
Yeah. Go with what excites you.
Yeah.
It's your toy. It's your creations, Michelle. You should show off what you're excited about.
Okay. So it is a Fist of the Gods is the do you want me to just read the little fiction piece
Sure,
of
yeah,
it?
go for
Yeah,
it.
I don't mind.
Yeah,
Um,
this will probably be condensed when it goes into playbook form, so people are getting a rare chance to get the full version right now.
yes. Fist of the Gods, the life essence of the Father you can feel. It is all around you and it wishes to be wielded by another God, begs to be given purpose. You may push yourself to cause your fist to gain a +1 of any of the following. And so you may have the ability to mess with metal work, making your hands hit harder, not get injured as easily. There's another, and these are all named after different gods, which are still in progress.
Yeah.
Fire, you can fight ghosts more effectively or something along that sort, be able to set blaze to something. What's another one here? There is another ability. I'm not going to say what it is because it's
You're
still
so
very
cagey. I love it.
I might be a little cagey. It's called Frozen Ink and Fire, and it is a protection glyph of half frozen Leviathan ink set on your chest by ritual into a particular glyph, and depending on how that is portrayed, you will be able to use special armor in a certain manner. I think one of the biggest differences, and I will go ahead and say this, is the Ink Fist. Like I said, the Ink Fist really approaches scenarios differently. And one way we have done that is with it is a rec playbook at the moment,
Mhm.
as rec being its main component on how you interact with the world.
Because it's
So,
also the inspiration for Inkfist was that it's about emotion
mhm.
rather than anything else. And that's why you approach things differently. Because I'm going to just tease people further because that's apparently what we're here for.
That's what we're doing.
Uh, yep. Daggerites define themselves by their emotions in ways that other peoples of the Shatter Isles don't. Feelings are not merely adjectives, they're actions onto themselves. This, they say, is a gift from the Father, and those of his children who inherit more of him than they do of their mother are bottomless wells of emotion, susceptible to drowning in their own feelings. Named for the distinct tattoos that set them apart from their brethren because of their patterns, and the fact that they cover almost every bare inch of their skin, Inkfists become what they are in order to survive. It is only through stringent routines, discipline, and constant meditation that they're able to regulate their feelings and harness the rage within them. They direct the passions that would otherwise hold them hostage into pure killing intent. That is an ink fist. And
Hmm.
we talk a lot about rage there, but in actuality, when later on, what Nichelle and I hope to design is that when you play an ink fist individually, which emotion defines you? Is it pure, unadulterated joy? And joy over what? Is it grief? Are you grieving somebody? Is it loneliness? Is it fear? Is it jealousy? Uh, Either way, as an ink fist, those emotions are who you are. They're all over your skin. You don't have an off or on switch to it. It's just everywhere all the
You
time.
are channeling the literal emotions of gods
Hmm.
into an action.
Yep.
And there are so many different expressions that can happen from that.
Yeah.
And it's one ink fist is going to be played very, very differently from another one. And I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
I'm, I think it's one of the coolest concepts. Technically, they all are, but I'm really excited to see how somebody uses something such as an emotion, then that connection to the world and the environment around them to interact.
Yeah.
And that feeling that like it's only because of this training and it's only because of these tattoos and it's only because of like the support that your community has given you that you're able to contain that emotion, and even then not always. Like
Hmm.
even then just
Yeah.
like most of the time on a
Most of
good day.
the yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I bet we have more in here. I haven't seen it. I was curious about the idea of criminality being explored in the culture, which I love. Will the crews still exist or some form? I think we already touched on that. I think we already said yes, crews will exist.
Mhm.
Importantly, crews and character playbooks will be interoperable between blades. So we're not thinking of this game as a supplement in the like, oh, this is like just a setting book.
Yep.
It will be a full game. Like you can just play a Dagger Isles game. It's not meant to say like, well, here's how you play characters in Dustfall that are from the Dagger Isles. It's like here's how you play in the Dagger Isles. It's a full game, just like Blades in the Dark is a full
Hmm.
game. Dustfall is not just a setting for it; it is intrinsic to it. But that said, we're working as hard as we can to make sure that the playbooks are interoperable. So if you want to play a cutter or a whisper in the Dagger Isles, you could do
You
that.
may.
If you want
Yeah.
to play an Ink Fist in Dustfall, you could do that. If you want to switch playbooks and crew abilities and veteran abilities and all that stuff, and that's really the hard. That's one of the hardest parts. Is like how do we keep everything so that it works back and forth? Because the playbooks will have some differences. There will be some intrinsic differences between them, like you having an emotional state that's like tied to your
Hmm.
character. For instance. But we're gonna really do what we can to make sure that all the abilities work back and forth. So you have a lot of new,
A
not
lot
a
of new
new,
stuff.
a lot of new toys to play
I
with. Yeah.
I may or may not have included mechanics into a few of the abilities as well. So they're familiar mechanics from Blades, but they're being interacted with a little differently or from a different perspective than what you normally see them. Um,
We'll also have some primers on the practical front, because a, a big lore thing, of course, is the diaspora. Because since you are dealing with the Dagger Isles, that does mean that many Daggerites were displaced or they left willingly. So I'm hoping to write a few sections, so either by myself or with other developers from the team, about the diaspora. If you are a Daggerite from Duskfall, what's it like? And how connected or disconnected are you from the islands themselves? What and offer some suggestions, because again, you can take it or you can leave it. This is just how we
mhm.
want to do it, and if it helps you, great. If it doesn't help you, have a good day. So that's how we're hoping to do our design.
Yes. I think there's going to be so many things to play with in this that hopefully something will help. There was a question about, did we reach out to Zedek, who wrote the amazing Thousand Islands
Yes.
source books,
Yes, we
which
did.
are so good. We did reach out to Zedek. They weren't available, unfortunately, but we have a fantastic cast on board, and who knows, maybe Zedek will come around. You never know, but yeah.
Zedek and I are good. We're warm acquaintances. I hope to call them a friend one day properly. We hang out. We hang out as much as we can, and whenever we run into each other in panels, we have this whole moment of like, quick, we have 15 minutes to catch up before we gotta do panel stuff, right? So, unfortunately, yeah, timelines did not align. Zedek was at the top of my list because he's been very inspiring for so many of us, and he and I align in many ways when it comes to talking about stuff like imperialism, identity, design, and how to make islands like super cool. So
yeah, I feel like there's influence in here from his work, no matter what, even if he doesn't end up working on it.
yeah.
Wondering if there will be a Kickstarter at some point that we can support the project. There will definitely be some kind of thing.
We're not sure what kind of thing, but there will be some kind of thing.
Yeah, we'll crowdfund this for sure. Absolutely. We're not anywhere close to it. We don't know dates for that, but yeah, that'll be. There's another comment. So it's not Oriental Adventures. Good. Yes.
No, it's not. I mean, let's again take another white elephant, right? Oriental Adventures was 1980s. It was from the before times of tabletop, right? But we are now in the current times. So current times have current standards. And while I'm sure that the people who did Oriental Adventures thought that they were doing good, now that we know better, it's time to rehash that and see what else we can invite in and who else can contribute to a wonderful project like this. Because I will be the first to tell you that I can definitely not do this alone. It's part of why I reached out to Evil Hat in the first place. I wanted to make things official, and I also wanted to make sure that people who have a different vision from me, and also have the design chops, could come and be involved as well.
Yeah. Well, I am so happy with the crew that we have on this particular score. It's been really. I get to once a week send out an email to everybody on the team and see how they're doing, and see on Discord how progress is going, and it's a fantastic team.
And it's also it has also been, like, at least it has been difficult for some of us as well, and I do always want to take the opportunity to thank, but it doesn't matter if they're not watching right now or not, but I like being shown my gratitude because it is a time of pandemic, and I will highlight for people who are not aware that Southeast Asia has been hit particularly hard by COVID. None of our countries are doing fantastically, and I know a lot of people are like, "Well, so are mine," but I'm like, let's not play oppression Olympics here. It's pretty bad here. We don't talk about it, but it's something. So to have team members, myself included, in these constraints, still producing, still doing fantastic stuff, still trying to make sure we meet those weekly check-ins and talk about cool things is like great, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think one of my favorite things, like so far, like just not just reading all the commentary in the documents, we're seeing how everyone creates their own onions and everything. It's mostly playtesting and listening to the stories afterwards and
Yeah.
creating, because sometimes things need tweaking. We've had several items on some play sheets that needed to be adjusted, or maybe it was too close to something, or we came up with something super super cool in playtesting, and then you get to hear all the history and everything behind it, and the entire team's willingness to talk and to teach and to have somebody else come in and explore that to better represent. It has been absolutely wonderful to do. The entire team has been fantastic to work with.
Yeah, I think every single game in the middle of it, Sin or Aaron or somebody will be like, "This actually reminds me of this story," you know, and we're like,
That's true.
And we're like, holy shit, because it's always like this super cool thing. And so we're like, yeah, how do we make the move work like that? Like whatever that was, let's do that because that's freaking awesome. So let's just make the mechanics, let's change the name, let's change, like that's the thing we want to do, like, and it's so fun because they'll just be like, yeah, there's a story about this weird thing, we're like, just like I feel like Nychelle and I are both just like, yes, tell me more this story. This is so cool.
I'm just thinking back to our last playtest in Sin, like that whole entire moment, like standing there and taking over the scene a little bit with the guards that we were doing was just like, I am eating every moment of this up. Where is my popcorn?
Yeah, that was a well-placed crit. That was a very, very, very good time crit. I think we're at time. Is that correct?
Unfortunately, we have filled this clock.
Yeah, we filled it all up. I see 2 questions in chat. I'm going to answer as quickly as I can. Are going to be the same number of playbooks? Yes, the same number of character playbooks. There will only be 3 crew playbooks. So same. And are there any Aboriginal Australian cultures represented in this? No, that is not currently on the docket. Though the Shattered Isles is a large place, so who knows for future places, future parts of the Shattered Isles. So cool. Should we do any kind of outros, Nychelle? How do you want to wrap up?
Yes. So having Pam and Sean here is been absolutely a great honor and wonderful. And thank you guys so much for the questions and everything in the chat and the support. It's been absolutely lovely. For those of you who want to perhaps watch this back later, it will be posted on the Hacked in the Dark YouTube channel. This is part of the Blades in the Dark and Forged in the Dark first annual con. We're hoping to make it a annual thing. And this is the last panel of the con, but don't forget, like I said, everything will be, the other panels and everything were also recorded. So they will be uploaded as well onto YouTube. We have some more game sessions and everything coming up. I actually talked Sean into being at my table because I am playing mates tomorrow. And effing Susie is going to F with Sean, and I am looking forward to it.
I cannot believe that anybody allows anyone to play mates in their game, let alone playing an entire game of mates. I was telling Nychelle, I made that playbook on an absolute lark. It was an April Fool's Day thing, and the fact that it's happening is just
yes. And that is only
it must be used.
Oh, Pam, if you were available tomorrow, please.
Unfortunately, I can't. But y'all have fun.
Sure, we will.
Definitely come. And there's more games being played. You can find out all the information on coninthedark.com, as well as the current schedule. Everything is also in your individual time zones. And there is also an Itch.io bundle that is only available through tomorrow. Oh. Once it is gone, it is gone. And it has, I think, 40 designers. And when I'm going to be quickly corrected by another mod who has more faculties at the moment than I do, as to that. But like I said, it's all on the website. Come over to the Discord. We're having some breakout rooms and networking as well. It's been a fantastic weekend so far. And this is the type of community we are. We sit around, we talk, we chat, we make games together, and it's wonderful. So thank you so much, Sean and Pam, for being here this evening. Thank you to our chat. Love you all, and see you in the Discord.